We're recording now. Hello and welcome. I will be starting a new book, which is pretty exciting because I haven't started a new book in a while. I feel. Yeah, I have read this a lot. So I'm writing a new book, and straight into it. And the book is called Bad Girls Don't Die. Yes, it's a really edgy book. Sorry. I have really bad allergies. For some reason, it feels like my legs are bruised. Let me show you the book cover. It's also edgy. This is by Katie Alender. There we go. And this is what, oh no, it's no. Okay, there we go. It's loading. This is the book cover. I have read this book multiple times, though the last time I think I read it was like probably 9-10 years ago. And this book was published in 2009, so probably around that time. So I've had this book for a long time. To give you not a summary of what it's about, but like a feel for what it's got. I will read to you the back of the book text that tells you what it's about. So it says, or it reads, Alexis thought she led a typically dysfunctional high school existence. Dysfunctional like her parents' marriage, her doll-crazy 13-year-old sister Casey, and even her own antisocial, anti-cheerleader attitude. When a family fight results in some tearful sisterly bonding, Alexis realizes that her life is creeping from dysfunction into danger. Casey is acting stranger than ever. Her blue eyes go green sometimes. She uses old-fashioned language, and she even loses track of chunks of time. Claiming to know nothing about her strange behavior, their old house is changing too. Doors open and close by themselves. Water boils on the unlit stove, and an unplugged air conditioner turns the house cold enough to see their breath in. Alexis wants to think that it's all in her head, but soon, what she'd like to think of as silly parlor tricks are becoming life-threatening to her, her family, and to her budding relationship with the class vice president. Alexis knows she's the only person who can stop Casey, but what if that green-eyed girl isn't even Casey anymore? So yeah, I think it's most like a possession. I don't remember. Like, literally, I'm telling you, the last time I read this book was like, if not 10 or 9 years ago, probably 8, but no shorter than 8. So yes. Okay. Well, shall we get started? Hold on, let me just do some things first. I need to put on my glasses. Okay. So, oh God. And I've read this book quite a lot because I'll show you the spine of the book is like super hold on, it's loading. Yeah, the spine is like super used up. Yeah, I read this book a lot because I thought it was super cool and entertaining. Though right now I don't remember anything of what happens. I just know it's like a spooky book. But I don't remember anything else. Alright. Well, here we go. So, Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Alender. For Christopher. Okay. Chapter 1. I stood perfectly still, looking up at the house and the dark sky beyond it. A band of mist drifted away from the moon, making way for the next set of clouds, what I hoped would be the picturesque backdrop I'd been waiting for. The camera, a 25-year-old Nikon FM2N, uh, $30 at a garage sale, waited patiently on the tripod. I didn't know how long I'd been outside. It felt like hours, although I was probably like a subject in one of those science experiments where they tell you to ring a bell after an hour, and most people make it for like 12 minutes. For a split second, I thought about giving up for the for a split second, I thought about giving up for the night. There was always tomorrow. But suddenly, everything around me seemed to get one shade brighter. The moon came pouring through the wispy haze of vapor that looked like a tattered veil draped behind the house. In other words, it was perfect. Photographs taken in very low light need long exposure, longer than most people, me included, can stand still. So I used a little device with a squeaky bulb. So I used a little device with a squeaky bulb and a cord that screws into the camera. I pressed the bulb, heard the clicks as the shutter lifted, and started counting. When I reached 10, I let go of the bulbs. The shutter closed. I repeated this a few more times, at one point adjusting the focal length so that the house itself was out of focus, and the giant oak in the front yard was sharply defined. I didn't take very many pictures. When you use real film and pay for it yourself, you can't just shoot as much as you want. After a few minutes, the clouds had melted together and the effect was back to being kind of blah. Even a house like ours, an ancient one with carved shingles, creaky overhangs, and an enormous stained glass bay window, needed the right setting. Now that my attention was diverted from the photographs, the spookiness of the scene hit me. Suddenly, standing outside all by myself, an easy target for any random maniac, seemed very foolish. My breath turned shallow and my hands trembled as I snapped the lens cap into place. I was tempted to grab the whole setup and run for the house, but something inside me refused to give in to the fear. So with slow, deliberate motions, I removed the camera from the tripod and unscrewed the little plate that holds it in place. I slipped the camera strap around my neck and started winding the remote shutter around my hand. Snap. I swung my hand I swung my head around, looking for the source of the noise. Deep breath. It was just a bird, or a squirrel, or one of the cats my sister insists on feeding, even though it's going to give our mother a hissy fit. No pun intended. Shuffle, shuffle. I don't know how to do that. Or that's not a shuffle. Yeah, but shuffle, shuffle. Here, kitty, I said softly. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Snap, pop. Present yourself, kitty, I said a little louder. A head popped in from behind the trunk of the... Yeah, a head popped out from behind the trunk of the oak tree. My heart did 3 backflips before I recognized the honey-colored hair of my little sister Casey. Present yourself? Casey asked. Sergeant Meow reporting for duty. I tried to think of something biting to say, but I still hadn't caught my breath. I swatted her on the arm and swallowed a huge gulp of air. She stared at the camera for a few seconds, her lips pressed together in the almost frown that had secretly become her default expression. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other and back, her fingers lightly playing with the sleeves of our mom's ancient Surrey High t-shirt that she'd inherited as a pajama top. How long have you been out there? Or how long have you been out here? Casey shrugged, looking at her. Casey shrugged, looked at her watch. A while. What time is it? 3:16? Seriously? I had been outside for 3 hours? I guess I'd rock that ringing bell experiment. Casey trails along beside me all the time when I'm out taking pictures. Sorry, I just got distracted. Yeah, Casey trails along behind me all the time when I'm taking... Casey trails along behind me all the time when I'm out taking pictures. She stands near the camera and watches what I'm watching, but she claims she doesn't get it, doesn't know why something's worth photographing. I've tried to teach her, but she's actually kind of hopeless. When we started, her pictures looked like bagged vacation snapshots, and after 5 exhausting hours, they were worse, because now she was trying to be artsy. A lot of blobs and blurs and pictures with no life of their own. I told her not to worry, that maybe her true talents would emerge when she was older. What else could I tell her? I can't imagine the feeling of walking through the world without being able to see the lines and shapes, the balance of... Yeah. What else could I tell her? That I can't imagine the feeling of walking through the world without being able to see the lines and shapes. And she's just a dumb sister, unlike me. I'm much more mature. Yeah, because her sister is 13 years old, and she's in high school right now. And Alexis is in high school right now. Yeah, that I can imagine the feeling of walking through the world without being able to see the lines and shapes and balance of seemingly normal objects. That when I'm at school, I feel lonely for my camera as if it were a friend, which I don't have any which I don't have any of at school. So it makes sense. What are you taking pictures of? I don't see anything, she said. I would explain, but it's 3 a.m., I said. I'll show you when I develop the film, okay? She nodded and yawned. I took another look up at at the house. There was a soft glow peeking through the branches our shaded bedroom that shaded our bedroom windows. Oh crap, I said. Case, which room is that light coming from? If Mom was wandering around turning on lights when if Mom was wandering around turning on lights, then she knew Casey wasn't inside. And then it was a pretty short road to figuring out that I was gone too, and that would mean trouble. No putting yourself or Casey in strange and or potentially dangerous situations to take pictures was the latest incarnation of the rule that had once upon a time been don't go on the roof, which with with every fresh misstep, the rule evolved. No taking pictures of retail merchandise. No taking pictures on other people's property. Don't use Casey as a decoy to get photos of people who don't want to be photographed. I was fairly sure that pretty soon it would just be put the camera down, sit on the sofa, and don't move. Even with the parental tantrum looming, the photographer and me couldn't ignore something so cool looking. It's like the way a hunter will see an exotic animal and want its head on his wall, only less gross. When I see something visually interesting, I want to take a picture of it so badly it's almost like a craving. Instinctively, I uncapped the lens and raised the light to my eye, and raised the camera to my eye. It's not my room, Casey said. It's not yours either. Set up the tripod, I said, waving to the spot where it lay on the ground. Then I turned my attention to the light. It was a soft glow, pale gold, and Casey was right. It wasn't coming from either of her rooms. It didn't actually seem to be originating from inside the house at all. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for the tripod. I held the camera as steady as possible, bending my knees and bracing my body to take a picture, to take a deep breath holding it, and pressed down the shutter. After a few seconds, I let go, then took another picture and another. Ready, Casey said, handing me the little plate to screw on the camera. As quickly as I could, I attached the camera to the tripod, then put my eye to the viewfinder. The light was gone. We waited a few more minutes, but it never returned. Finally, I capped the lens and folded up the tripod. Casey watched me, glancing up every few seconds to see if the light was back. Our eyes met at one point, and I had to swallow hard. What was it? Where had it come from? Why did it turn off? Neither of us asked the questions out loud, but we were both thinking them. We marched silently through the side yard. Fortunately, the October nights were cool enough that many ginormous spiders that usually populated that part of the yard were gone. I walked in front, though, just in case. Casey was a freaker outer, and we didn't need any blood-curdling screams advertising our location. I turned back to check on her, stopping so abruptly that she ran right into me. "Spider?" she asked, panic in her voice. I shook my head. I was looking past her into the front yard, at the spot where we'd been standing just 20 seconds earlier. Yeah, I was looking past her into the front yard, at the spot where we'd been standing just 20 seconds earlier. It was lit up by the same faint glow we'd seen in the tree, and it actually seemed to be growing. "What?" Casey whispered. Uh, if my sister saw it, she would spaz. I looked right at her and smiled. "Nothing." Out of the corner of my eye, I got a sense of the light growing larger, and then I realized it wasn't getting bigger. It was getting closer. It was following us. "You know, I might have seen a little spider," I said. "Go, now, move," Casey said, pushing on my back. I let her go ahead of me through the back door as I cast one final glance behind us. There was no glow. Either it had disappeared or it hadn't rounded the corner yet. We slipped into stealth mode to climb the stairs from the foyer to the second floor, skipping the 3rd, 8th, and 11th steps, which all squeaked loudly enough to wake the dead. And then Casey waved a little goodbye and ducked into her bedroom. I set the tripod on the floor and the camera on the dresser, and exhaustion overwhelmed me. I changed into a long t-shirt and crawled into bed, telling myself that it had just been a swarm of curious fireflies. I mean, it had to be. There wasn't any other explanation. The last thing I saw before I fell asleep was the faintest trace of a glow on the spindly branches of the oak tree outside my window. Curious fireflies, I told myself sleepily. So curious that they'd found a way to follow us upstairs without actually coming into the house. And that is the end of the first chapter. Oh my god, it's getting so intense. Just kidding. I really forget what happens in this book. Like, I seriously don't know whatsoever. I read this book a lot when I was littler, but I have seemed to have forgotten it. Alright, but let me just. There we go. Excuse me. Alright, so we go on to the next chapter, which is. Actually, I should see how many chapters I want to do. Yeah, I'll go up to chapter 4. I won't. I'll just read chapter 3 after chapter. Yeah, I'll just end at chapter 4. Actually, no. Chapter 4 is pretty short, so chapter 5. Oh, yeah, because chapter 5 is a long one. I'll end when I finish the book. If I had that mental and physical capacity to do it, oh man, I would do it. but I do not have that kind of brain power or lung power or voice power. Talking just takes it out of you. Hold on, let me drink some water. Oh my god. Alright, so on to the next chapter, which is chapter 2. So, chapter 2. Hold on. Okay, yeah, I just had to figure out something. Alright, so yes, chapter 2. Back left corner of the library, underneath the study desks. You have to be willing to sit on the floor, but that's a small price to pay for the perfect instead of class hangout. Zero student traffic, lots of legroom, and complete invisibility to the librarian. Excuse me, Alexis? Excuse me, Alexis. Tragically, it was not invisible to the principal. Yeah, tragically, it was not invisible to the principal. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, tragically, it was not invisible to the principal. What class are you cutting this fine fall day, Miss Warren? I stood up out of the library carrel and grabbed my bag. History, but technically I'm not cutting a class. The corner of Mrs. A the corner of Mrs. Ames' mouth twisted up into an almost smile, and she cleared her throat. This was promising. This was. Yeah, this was promising. This was. My day hasn't taken a nosedive yet, so this is kind of amusing. Not. I've had it up to here. When you spend as much time around the principal as I do, you get to know her idiosyncrasies. And why does history not qualify as a class? She spoke. Mrs. Ames adjusted the straw beach hat she'd worn for Hat Day, day one of the officially most annoying time of the entire school year, homecoming week. The hat clashed yeah, the hat clashed horribly with her beige blazer. Yeah, with her beige blazer. But I knew way better than to comment. We walked out of the library. As nice as it would be to pretend we were having a pleasant stroll, I knew where we were headed, and I knew what phone number she would be calling when we got there, and I knew what meeting my mother would be pulled out of to talk to her daughter's principal again. And I knew exactly which classroom to report to for Saturday detention. And not the fun 80s movie kind of Saturday detention. The incredibly boring kind that makes you want to stab yourself in the eye with a pencil. At least then you'd get to leave. I sighed. They were in the gym, decorating for the banquet. If there was a bright side to the whole thing, it was that I still got to miss decorating the stupid gym for stupid alumni. Yeah, for this. Let me say that again. Yeah, if there was a bright side to this whole thing, it was that I got to miss decorating the stupid gym for the stupid alumni uh, homecoming banquet. Another detention, big deal. I hadn't had a free Sunday since August. But Mrs. Ames is no dummy. Ah, she said, and stared right into my eyes. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we sweep this incident under the rug and you get back to class so you can help out? I shot her a look. She gave me an innocent smile. We started down the hallway that led to the gym. How many times is this now, Alexis? This month? This month? This year. I puffed air out of my mouth to blow the wispy pink hairs away from my face. Ah, she's got pink hair. Nice. 12, Alexis, she said. 12 skipped classes that I know of, not to mention a number of other small incidents. The way she said small incidents is a very clear reminder that some of the incidents weren't small. I, personally, don't see what's so criminal about giving honest feedback to a student teacher who should clearly quit while she's ahead, or having an anti-fashion show outside the gym during the choir's annual fashion show. But I guess that's just me. Let me tell you, Miss Warren, there's been some pressure to avoid handing out Saturday detentions like lollipops. There's a big trend in the district toward suspension right now. Suspension. I dug my fingernails slightly into the palm of my hand. Somehow suspension sounded way worse than detention. Detention happens to everybody. Suspension though, that's for the sociopaths. I wasn't 100% sure I was ready to take that leap. She sighed and we started walking again. You know, I think you have a lot of potential, Alexis. Your test scores are very high, and it's clear that you can do well if you want to. She went off into a lecture about how nobody can make my choices but me. I nodded, but I was only half listening. The word suspension was still buzzing around in my head like an angry bee. We reached the gym. The entire history class was spread out around the gym, working on stupid, meaningless tasks for the stupid, meaningless banquet, and every head turned to look at us. I held my chin high and shot a couple of disdainful looks around. The kids I made eye contact with went back to their work. Mrs. Anderson, who happens to be the dumbest teacher ever, and I'm not just saying that, it's true. It took her 4 tries to pronounce Aborigines. Came hustling over. Okay. I'm pretty sure I said that right, too. Teenagers are really mean, man. This writer got it right. Okay, cool. She can't even pronounce a word that I know how to pronounce. What a fucking idiot. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Let me say it again, because I like... it's pretty cool. Not pretty cool, but it's like... something different when you act like a snotty teenage brat who knows everything about life, apparently. So yeah, Mrs. Anderson, who happens to be the dumbest teacher ever, and I'm not just saying that, it's true. It took her 4 tries to pronounce Aborigines, came hustling over. Well, what have we here? She asked. Alexis, what a nice surprise. I assume you're on your way to the main office. Mrs. Ames frowned. No, Miss Warren, and I have been chatting. Yeah, no, Miss Warren and I have been chatting, so I hope you'll excuse her tardiness. I'm going to leave her in your capable hands, Mrs. Anderson. She said, capable hands, a lot like she'd said small incidents. Wonderful, Mrs. Anderson replied. Mrs. Ames looked down at me. I'm sure you'll put your best effort into your work today, Alexis. Oh, totally. But Mrs. Anderson wasn't ready to let the torment end. She clapped her hands together. Alexis, you must have forgotten that today is Hat Day. Silly girl, pink hair isn't a hat. Luckily, we have some backups. She turned and called over her shoulder. Jeremy, bring that box over here. Yeah, Jeremy, bring that box over here. A boy who'd been assembling really ugly centerpieces out of fake flowers and wicker baskets. Reluctantly picked up a medium-sized cardboard box and started toward us. No way. I would wear a dancing banana fruit basket on my head before I would let one of those disgusting things touch my scalp. Jeremy tripped and dropped the box. Hats went flying everywhere. Nice. How thoughtful of you, Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Ames said as Jeremy crawled around gathering up baseball caps and colorful sombreros. But I don't think Alexis is a hat day type. Case closed. Mrs. Ames headed out of the gym. Mrs. Anderson turned to me, all the peppy rah-rah gone from her voice. What to do with dear Alexis? She said. She asked, scanning the room. Why don't you? As long as I was far away from Mrs. Anderson, I'd be fine. Go help Pepper. Pepper? She's not even in this class, I protested. Mrs. Anderson looked triumphant. Well, Alexis, all of the cheerleaders are helping out today. So why don't you check in with Pepper and tell her you'll be thrilled to do anything she needs. Thrilled is not the word I would choose. It's not straight, Pepper said. Her flaming orange hair was mostly tucked under a ridiculously floppy magenta beret, but one stray lock looped down and covered her left eye. She glared at me with the right eye. I heaved a huge sigh. Pepper, I swear, the banner is straight. We'd been on opposite sides of a plastic welcome home alumni banner for probably 5 minutes, and every time we had it in place, Pepper backtracked and decided it wasn't good enough. It doesn't look right, she whined. That's because you're looking at it with only one eye, I said. You have no depth perception. She sniffed and rolled her eye. Let's get something clear. Pepper Laird is a cheerleader. As such, she is used to bouncing in place and holding her arms in the front, uh, and as such, she's used to bouncing in place and holding her arms in the air for long periods of time. I, Alexis, am not a cheerleader. In fact, I'm sort of an anti-cheerleader. So while Pepper is out there working on her biceps and triceps and glutes, I am slumping under the bleachers with the rest of the outcasts. But no way was I going to admit to Pepper that I couldn't take it. I dropped my half of the banner. Forget it, I said. My arms burned as blood poured back through the veins. This is moronic. I'm not going to do this. We have to, Pepper said. And you have to help, or I'll tell Mrs. Anderson. Oh, she definitely would. And then I'd have to face Mrs. Ames for the second time that day, and her goodwill and ability to see a shred of potential in me would probably be all used up. I settled for doing some arm stretches and making a very angry noise in Pepper's direction. You freak, she said. This was not a new concept to me. You and your stupid pink hair. Not new either. And your whole freaky family. That part was new. Because whatever forces separated Pepper and me in the suffocating world of Surrey High School, one thing bound us together. Like other girls, I hate being girly, and I enjoy putting girly girls down for doing things I don't like. This girl's edgy. Dude, this whole book is gonna be edgy. Like I said, audience, I am 24 years old. I have not read this book in probably 9-10 years. So, when I read this, I was also a teenager, like 14 or 13. And I loved this shit. I loved this book. But for some reason, I can't seem to remember anything about it. Nothing. But now I'm just like, wow, this is edgy. This girl's edgy. And teenagers are mean. Man. Think they know everything. I'm scared for when my nieces become teenagers. Oh my god. One's almost 7. Okay. Back to the edginess. Yeah. Because whatever forces separated Pepper and me in the suffocating world of Surrey High School, one thing bound us together, and that was family. Sisters, to be specific. Casey had been best friends with Pepper's sister, Mimi, since 4th grade. Oh, I remember Mimi, sort of. I remember the name. It sounds familiar. Yeah, Casey had been best friends with Pepper's sister, Mimi, since 4th grade. They were the kind of friends who argue more often than they don't, but they were still glued together. Grow up, I said. Leave my family alone. Pepper stood up straighter. As long as your schizoid sister leaves Mimi alone, I'm fine with that arrangement. Confusion must have overtaken annoyance in my expression. Her arm, Pepper said. Mimi had broken her arm at our house about a month before, but it was an accident. She'd been running down the hall and slipped on a rug as she turned into Casey's room. That kind of thing just happens. Although, come to think of it, we hadn't seen much of Mimi lately. I don't know, but I think Mimi is possessed too. Spoiler alert, but yeah, this is like a supernatural book. I think Mimi's possessed too. I'm not sure. Something happens to Mimi, I think. I'm not sure though. No one dies, but something happens. I don't really remember. But I remember her name, her sister's name, Mimi. Yeah, that kind of thing just happens. Although, come to think of it, we hadn't seen much of Mimi lately. Oh, yeah, bad girls don't die. They're all bad girls. Yep. Yeah, no one dies in this movie. I mean, in this book. Yeah. Although, come to think of it, we hadn't seen much of Mimi lately. Yeah, so? Your sister broke my sister's arm, Pepper said. Oh, please. Mimi told me the whole story. She won't tell her mom because she says she feels bad for Casey. But I think she's afraid because your little sister is a violent maniac. Okay, so I'm not popular and friendly and I don't have any friends, but I wasn't about to let someone stand there and talk smack about my baby sister, who, yes, is sensitive, but no, is not a violent maniac. I took a step forward. Yeah, I took a step toward Pepper. She flinched, but she didn't back away. Face it, Alexis. Casey is a whack job. She narrowed her eyes. All my sister tried to do was to touch one of her stupid dolls. Pepper went on ranting, but I wasn't paying attention. I didn't back down, and suddenly, I didn't back down, but suddenly I didn't feel like fighting about it either. Because of that one word. Dolls seemed too right. A lot of people are avid collectors of things you or I would consider stupid or at least silly. Rocks with googly eyes glued to them, or seashells with feet, candles shaped like animals or mythical creatures. For Casey, it was dolls. I don't even remember when it started. Years ago. Long enough for Casey, using her meager allowance, every dime of birthday or Christmas money, and who knows what else, to amass dozens of dolls. And if my sister were ever capable of hurting someone, it would be to protect her precious collection. Pepper grabbed her end of the banner. Let's just do this so I can get away from you, she said. The feeling is mutual, I said. We hoisted the banner once again. Stop! It's perfect, said a voice. I turned to see who had spoken. Oh, great. Megan Wiley, poised, self-assured, co-captain of varsity cheerleading, even though she's just a sophomore. Oh, and my own personal nemesis. More on that in a sec. Studied our sign, then sauntered over with the hammer and nails. She hammered both sides into the wall without another word. Here's the deal. I speak up in class. I get sent to the office. Megan speaks up in class. She's a strong, assertive model student. I post a few flyers saying that the vending machines on school property are a sign that our school district has sold out to the corporate industrial establishment. I get, what else? The Saturday detention. Megan starts a campaign to serve local foods in the lunchroom. Oh, and could we please maybe get rid of the soda machines? And the local newspaper does a write-up about her. She's like me, only not. Not like me at all. She's the golden girl, and I'm tarnished. So forgive me if I hate her a little. Pepper stalked off while I scanned the gym for a seat that would hide me from the roving eyes of Mrs. Anderson, then paused to turn back around to look at the sign, which was mercifully straight. Home is where the heart is. Surrey Alumni Homecoming Scholarship Banquet. Welcome home, alumni. A few feet away, Megan was looking at it too. Our eyes met. I'm not sure I'd give money at a fundraiser if they couldn't bother to have it someplace nicer than a high school gym, she said, turning away before I could answer. Her gaze lingered on the canvas, and I suddenly noticed that she was almost not even wearing a hat. Just a devil horn headband left over from last Halloween. I said, and walked away. I guess, in her own way, Megan is really different from the rest of them. But I still hate her. Alright, and that is the end of chapter 2. And now we go on to chapter 3. How many pages is this book? Oh, it's going to take me a while to finish it. I feel like it's going to take me at least 6 or 7 sessions to finish it. Because it is pretty big. Excuse me. Alright, so on to the next chapter, which is chapter 3. Chapter 3. Once upon a time, I had a best friend. Her name was Beth Goldberg. Beth and I got in lots of trouble together. Back then, people called it mischief and went a little easy on us. Apparently, when it's two people, it's quirky and funny. Yeah, apparently when it's two people, it's quirky and funny. But when it's a person doing the same stuff on their own, it's rebellious and antisocial. I'd always assumed that Beth and I would be friends forever. But then in the middle of 8th grade, the Goldbergs went through sorry. I'm like skipping this word for whatever reason. Yeah, but then in the middle of 8th grade, the Goldbergs went through the world's nastiest divorce. Beth went a little nuts. I don't blame her. When her dad got involved with his 21-year-old dental hygienist, Beth got involved with the junk food aisle at the grocery store. She carried processed snack cakes around the way toddlers carry teddy bears. She gained like 20 pounds, but I didn't think it was a big deal. I figured she'd get back to her usual weight once the shock wore off. Unfortunately, I wasn't the only person who noticed. May 14th was Fun and Fit Day at Surrey Middle School. So the gym was full of booths set up by local health clubs and doctors and dentists and sports leagues, all trying to entice us not to end up as couch potatoes. That part was fine. What wasn't fine was when the whole school sat down to watch the 8th grade cheerleaders program on physical fitness. They had a PowerPoint presentation, and it started out okay, if a little stupid. Finding their misspelled words made it kind of fun, actually. vegetables, vegetables, yeah, vegetables and carbohydrates. Yeah, I'm yeah, carbo yeah, carbohydrates. Yeah, vegetables and carbohydrates. And don't forget to eat plenty of protein. Protein is spelled protene. So these were the misspelled words. Vegetables, carbohydrates, and protein. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, vegetables and carbohydrates, and don't forget to eat plenty of protein. Beth and I sat there and laughed. Good times. Then came the next segment. You know, those do and don'ts. Yeah, you know, those do and. What am I doing? Yeah, those. Those do and don't pages in fashion magazines. Like, do try belting your hideous $900 fuchsia sweater in that ridiculous uh, $400 belt. And don't leave the house with your underwear on the outside of your pants. The cheerleaders did that, only they used pictures of kids from our school. Do eat, do exercise regularly. Insert photo of several cheerleaders looking really pretty as they pretend to lift weights. Don't sit on the sidelines in gym class. The picture that went with this one had a black bar over the kid's eyes, just like in a magazine. But everyone could tell it was Delgado. Yeah, Delgado, who'd been overweight since kindergarten. That's when most people started laughing nervously, and that's when Beth and I stopped laughing. Do eat lots of produce. Do eat lots of fresh produce. A shot of Conroy and Megan Wiley daintily eating a salad outside the lunchroom. Don't go back for seconds in the lunch line. And there it was, a picture of Beth. Yeah, there was a black bar over her face, but it was obviously her. She had her favorite rainbow striped sweater on, the really expensive one from Nordstrom. The one she loved to wear even if it was tight and sometimes rode up a little to show off her new Twinkie stomach. Beth didn't want to come back to school after that. She got out of her mom's car a minute before Yeah, she got out of her mom's car a minute before first bell, ate lunch in the main office, and got special permission to leave 5 minutes before final bell. Probably because Mrs. Goldberg and Javier Delgado. Yeah, probably because Mrs. Goldberg and Javier Delgado's mom threatened to sue the pants off the school board. The cheerleaders got a slap on the wrist. A bunch of us started a petition to keep the high school from letting them on the junior varsity squad. We had hundreds of signatures, including a lot from teachers and parents. The JV coach at Surrey High agreed and barred the whole team from tryouts. But then the varsity cheerleaders decided to stand up for their sisters, and they invited just about the whole troop to skip JV and join their team. And that was right around when Beth and her mom put their house on the market and started packing up to move to Florida. So now, not only did my best friend leave, but the cheerleaders and their mindless followers assumed I was personally responsible for the petition, which yeah, I was, and started being openly rude to me, shutting doors in my face, leaving nasty notes on my desk and in my locker, making fun of me when I could obviously hear them. That's when I began keeping quiet. That's when I began keeping really quiet in class and finding ways to show the other kids I wasn't afraid of them, like staring at them straight in the eye when they looked at me, taking a step toward them when they talked to me, or walking right up to them and getting in their personal space if I heard them say my name, saying the meanest things I could when saying the meanest things I could think of I could think of whenever I had the chance, repeating rumors, embellishing them. I found out Conroy had been arrested for shoplifting at the mall, and made sure everybody knew about it. The girl who burped in a boy's face during her first kiss, the girl who tripped and fell on the stage at the Miss Teen California pageant. I shared their stories the moment I heard them. All's fair in war, right? So suddenly, I wasn't a nobody anymore. I was somebody. Somebody everyone was afraid of. Since Megan Wiley was the captain of the cheerleaders, the school withheld her Student of the Year award, seeing how she's always been star of the student body and undisputed queen of the cheerleaders. I can only imagine the whole fun and fit presentation was her idea in the first place. And it's not like she'd break formation or and say otherwise. Everyone is so mean at the school. Teenagers are just mean. I think I know which book I want to read next. I know that was really sudden. Yeah, I just started reading this one. And the next book is going to be a long one too. But I want to read Memoirs of a Geisha. I don't know why that popped in my head, but it just did. And that is going to be the next book I'm going to read after this one. So stay tuned for that. Or just wait until I read that one, I guess. But you don't know when these videos are going to come out anyway. So it's fine. Okay. Yeah, and it's not like she'd break formation and say otherwise, even if it wasn't. Beth and her mom moved the Saturday after the last week of school. We tried to stay in touch, we really did, but I guess going to a ritzy private school changes your priorities. All I know is that we swore we'd talk once a week, and it took about 3 months for that plan to dissolve into nothing. When Beth started go- when Beth started talking about going to the zone diet and uh, when Beth started talking about going on the zone diet and wanting a Prada purse, pardon me, bag, I knew that was the beginning of the end. And when I dyed my hair pink last year, it was the end of the end. So, since Beth left, I haven't really had a best friend. I guess I don't have any real friends at all. I mean, there's Casey. She's 13, 2 years younger. So if you believe the greeting card commercials, we should have this special bond or something. We get along all right, but once she hit middle school, I started to feel less like her friend and more like her security blanket. There was a time when we used to hang out. Casey, me, Beth, even Mimi, goofing off and watching movies. But gradually, my formerly funny and cool sister morphed into a neurotic, oversensitive, doll-obsessed mess. Now our vibe is pretty much bad, big bad sister uh, protecting a mid little sister. So now the greeting card companies. So until yeah, so until the greeting card companies start making cards that say you've always been there when I was either scared or bored, our relationship doesn't measure up to Hallmark standards. There's one group I hang out with at school, but their attitude is getting tiresome. My secret name for them is the Doom Squad. Everyone assumes they're morbid and strange, so they do their best to live up to the hype. Some of them are really nice, and I think they could be okay if they would just stop trying so hard. I mean, just because you don't want to be a cookie cutter clone doesn't mean you have to wear a spiky collar and dress like a vampire wannabe. In the first place, I'm too lazy to put that much effort into my appearance. And in second place, I'm really paranoid about wearing non matching blacks, so I usually end up in jeans and a t shirt. After history, I stopped by my locker. Lydia Small, who might as well be the Doom Squad poster child, wandered up and rested her forehead on the locker next to mine. She spends a lot of time and energy to give people the impression that she's too emo and gothic to be interested in anything. Still, I did notice she was wearing a wedding veil when she shredded and glued a bunch of plastic eh, Still, I did notice she was wearing a wedding veil that she'd shredded and glued a bunch of plastic spiders onto. Lydia is rude and overbearing and pretentious, and to be honest, there are actually several people I'd rather hang out with than her. That she's the one who always seems to appear out of thin air, and because of her big old attitude, people tend to do what she says. So when she walks over at lunch and says, "Move, worm," to whoever's sitting next to me, they move. In spite of my misgivings, Lydia and I have been hanging out a little. Uh, Lydia and I have been hanging out a little lately, going to see movies, people watching at the mall, end up next to each other at lunch, ending up next to each other at lunch. She was drawn to me like a moth to a porch light. In fact, sometimes I suspected that, yeah, in fact, sometimes I suspected it was my ambivalence about her that made her so eager to hang out. She wasn't best friend material, but I was getting used to having her around. You won't believe what you won't believe what Pepper Laird just said to me. Or let me say that again. You won't believe what Pepper Laird just said to me. I said. I said. Lydia was quiet for a second. I waited for her to say something sympathetic. "Oh," she said. "A fair start." As I drew in a breath to elaborate, Lydia widened her eyes. "Sabrina Woodburn dyed her hair black. Who does she think she is? Morticia Adams? She's in marching band. What a wannabe." "Weren't you in Glee Club until the middle of last year?" I said. I asked. Lydia sputtered. "That's totally different." "Sure," I said. "Keep telling yourself that." Now, see, if somebody talked to me that way, I would tell them exactly where they could put their opinion, and then I would assume the friendship was over. But Lydia just pouted and looped her arm through mine. "Sounds like someone's a little gay." I don't know if that's in the book, but it sounds like someone's a little gay. Which is totally fine, but also like, this girl's following her. Yeah, ooh. Ooh. Though I don't remember, or I don't know. Um, with me. Yeah, but Lydia just pouted and looped her arm through mine. We started walking toward homeroom together. As we passed a group of cheerleaders, Lydia stuck her tongue out at them and licked her tongue piercing against her teeth. They drew back in a scandalized herd. "Oh, that is so mature," one girl said. As we kept walking, the crowd seemed to thin a little. I spotted Megan Wiley leaning up against a locker, talking seriously to a girl in a pink cowboy hat who was crying so hard her mascara ran down to her cheeks. The girl was Emily Rosen. I had Spanish with her. She was nice. I planned to drag Lydia right past without stopping, but she saw the tears and came to a screeching halt. "Hey, Em!" she called. "What are you doing?" I asked under my breath, as both Megan and Emily looked at us. I heard you had a big night with Rory Henderson." Let me say that again. "I hear you had a big night with Rory Henderson," Lydia said sweetly, assuming what he's been telling people is true. Emily's face froze for a moment, and then she was bawling again. I clamped my hand on Lydia's arm as Megan shot a dirty look in our direction. The only thing that saved us was the swaggering arrival of Rory Henderson himself. Rory's only popular because his dad is a rich lawyer, and his mom used to be the weather girl on Channel 12. He's not really good looking, and his entourage is made up of goons who laugh at everything he says, even though none of it is funny. "Hey, Rory, you big stud," Lydia cooed, and he gave her a half second of a smile. She dissolved into giggles. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Megan glaring. "God, Lydia, you're so obnoxious," I hissed. Lydia laughed her "I don't care about anything" laughed. "I know, right?" "You didn't have to say that to Emily." Emily was genuinely sweet, the kind of girl who would offer you her notes if you were absent. "She deserves it." "Yeah, she deserves it," Lydia said, all la-di-da. Look, she's Look, she's buddy-buddy with Wiley." I turned to look back at Emily and Megan, but the first thing I saw was Rory. He stood motionless, staring across the hall at something. A second later, I realized it was Megan he was staring at, only it was really the other way around. She was staring at him, and from the look of things, he wasn't all that wild about it. His ruddy cheeks paled, and he cast a nervous look at the kids around him. "I don't know, Rory," Megan said. Her voice was low, but it carried perfectly. Everyone within 20 feet was watching and listening. Yeah, everyone within 20 feet was watching and listening. "It seems really unlikely that any of what you said is true. I mean, considering what Jessica told us after prom last year, about things going downhill." Jessica Cheong, 11th grader on the varsity squad, smiled brightly and waved. Then, in unison, the cheerleaders laughed their tinkly little laughs, which made everyone else laugh too. Huge rosy patches flooded Rory's face. He ducked his head and practically ran off down the hill, his crew following in disgrace. Lydia dragged me away. Oh my god, you should hear what he's telling everyone she did last night. It's nasty. I'm sick of cheerleaders. They're so shrill. If there was a shrill contest, the Doom Squad would probably take the gold medal. At least silver. But I didn't say so to Lydia. She'd just take it as a compliment. I happen to know that Lydia was not only in Glee Club last year, but she played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz in 8th grade, and she used to blog under the alias Birdweed Diva. It's BRD here, however you want to pronounce it. It's BRDWYDIVA. Yeah, I think it's Birdwee or Birdwee. Oh, Broadway Diva. I just now noticed that. Yeah, Broadway Diva. What? You deciphered it? It makes no sense. It does not make sense, at least to me. Audience, you can comment down below and you can say if it makes sense or not. Just yes and me, please. I'm dying out here. It doesn't make sense either. Are you trying to intentionally confuse me or not make sense? You erased it. Why did you erase it? You erased that one. What? No! 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 Come back! No! Why'd you do that? It's okay, your other dumb jokes never landed. Some of your... Well, you had to get rid of all the evidence then. There are other jokes that are dumb that you have posted and you never took them down. Come on now. You didn't have to take them down. I mean, people are gonna see that anyway. It's all recorded. You deleted them for the bit? Oh. Well, they'll be forever in the video. But yeah, I think I still remember your thing. Wait, no. Better really die. Better really die. No, I forgot. Better really die when you're talking very active. There we go. There's the joke for people that he deleted before. Okay, I thought you deleted it again. There it is. There's his dumb joke, everyone. Oh wow, it's only 9. Oh no, you did another one. Bus room, don't waddle. Yesterday, devastated. These are just. At least the other one was kind of like a sentence. This is just words. Worse, Randy died with yesterday's stuck in vertical tension. Okay, that's funny. I'll give you a reaction for that one. with yesterday's duck and vertical. You should have said dick instead. Oh my god, are you ready? Well, you see, I already cuss, and the first one was. I think it's safe to say that my videos are not friendly. Well, they may not be like little kid friendly, but because I do swear a lot. Barney really died with you taking the chance. Damn, okay. That was my first one. I didn't post originally. Oh. Damn. That was your first one, but then you decided not. I like the Boris one, though. The Boris one gets a laugh from me. Yeah, the Barney one is like a little not that friendly, just because Barney is associated with the kids show. Yeah, but okay. We've already spent 11 minutes on this bit. No more. Just kidding. I just don't want to make the video longer than it needs to be. I mean, that's really all my videos. I'm going back to my case study. Okay, do that. I will go back to this book. Okay, so we'll just go back a bit. Yeah, I happen to know that Lydia was not only in Glee Club last year, but she played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz in 8th grade. And she used to blog under the alias Broadway Diva about all the Broadway shows she wanted to see and all the actors she wanted to meet. Then whoosh, she changed pretty much overnight into the spider-veiled Princess of Doom. That's the pathetic thing about high school. Everyone tries so hard to be something they aren't. It's gotten so I don't know who I am. So how can I even try to be who I am? Much less someone I'm not. Let me say that again. Yeah, it's gotten so I don't know who I am. So how can I even try to be who I am, much less someone I'm not? My problem is that I don't fit in with the misfits. I don't fit in anywhere. Okay, hold on. I just need to move my. Here we go. Yeah, I don't fit in anywhere. So there I was, walking next to Lydia, who was waving her arms around and telling a story way more dramatically than she needed to, when a door opened right into my forehead and knocked me down. Just like that. And when I say down, I mean like down for the count. I landed on my butt, which I suppose is better than landing on the back of one's skull, if one has to choose, but it still sucked. I sat there for a second, thinking I was all alone in a very dark room that smelled like pennies, and then I started to hear voices all around me, and my vision came back. Lydia crouched to my left, staring at me, and on the right, a teacher was trying his best to take charge of the situation. And in front of me was a guy with blonde hair and glasses. My first thought was, he's really cute. His curly blonde hair, his big, worried blue eyes. My second thought was, wait, I know that curly hair and those big blue eyes. I closed my eyes again, and my head started to hurt. The teacher, a tweed-clad staple of the history department, took hold of my hand and patted it a few times. Try to stay awake. You could have a concussion. Not like closing your eyes helps the pain anyway. I opened them without complaint. He was still there, looking at me. I don't mean the history teacher, I mean him. Carter Bloom. Do you know your name? The teacher asked. Okay, I understand that it's standard first aid procedure to ask this question, but if you do happen to know your name, it's really annoying to be asked. I nodded and started to answer. Her name is Alexis. Lydia shrieked helpfully. Oh my god, Alexis, are you okay? I squinted. I'm fine. Her shouting was making my headache worse. Alexis Warren, Carter said. I stared at him, and after a second he smiled. I'm the guilty door opener, he said. Very sorry. He stuck his hand out, and it didn't occur to me right away that he actually wanted me to shake it, like we were a pair of old men or something. I just looked blankly at his hand until he laughed and pulled it back. Lydia tried to haul me to my feet. The teacher helped her, and Carter hovered behind them. Haven't you done enough? Lydia spat at him. Why don't you go back to the young Republicans? He ignored her. I am so sorry, he said, looking into my eyes. Careful, Alexis. I looked away. Not that there was any danger of me actually liking someone like Carter. I mean, so what if his eyes were really sparkly? And who cared if his blonde curls looked as soft as a baby's hair? He's not my type. In fact, I didn't have a type. Oh, wait, no. He was not my type. In fact, I didn't have a type. Not that I was looking to date college guys, but I'd always operated under the assumption that my Prince Charming wasn't among the available choices at Surrey High. I realized I had been kind of staring at him, but thankfully the late bell rang, interrupting the moment. You should go to the clinic, the teacher said. Check in with the nurse. Can I come too? Lydia asked frantically. I am her best friend. No, you're not, I thought. I think she'll be fine on her own, he said. I should go with her, Mr. Daly, Carter said. It's my fault. I won't be gone long. The teacher shot him a suspicious look, but nodded. 5 minutes. Lydia breathed out through her nose and looked at her watch. I guess I have to go to class, Alexis. It was a clear prompt for me to invite her along. Yeah, okay, I said. See you later. The teacher ducked into his classroom and Lydia trudged away. I was alone with my assailant. This really isn't necessary, I said. I can get there without help. My pleasure, he said. And that's the end of that chapter. Oh shit. I said I'd only go up to chapter 5 and we're on chapter 4. I'm just like, should I read more? We'll see. Okay. So, on to the next chapter, which is chapter 4. It all started in September of last year. There used to be this show, Surrey Survey, that was broadcast once a week during homeroom, run by a couple of AV nerds. I was on the last episode ever to air. It was a show about student government elections. The AV guys were in my Spanish class, and while we were talking one day, they told me their next show was about elections. Huh. Yeah, we're in real life. We're fucking in election time right now. Go vote. Please. Your vote matters. If you think your vote doesn't matter, whoever doesn't want you to vote has won. So, get out there and vote. Register, whatever you gotta do. Vote. And I'm not saying vote for, whoever. I'm not encouraging you to vote for one or the other or for anyone. Just go out and vote because your vote matters. And another thing, even if you're just like, oh, even if you think like, okay, yeah, the elections are mainly about, the president and stuff, like who's gonna be the president and stuff, but there's also like about props and stuff for like your own community, which is really important. So if you don't want to vote for the president, it's okay, but vote for other stuff like props and other laws and stuff like that. Vote for that, because your vote will count for that. I know there's the electoral college with the whole presidential thing, and yeah, that kind of makes our vote not matter, but you gotta vote. Please vote. Please. I'll probably pull this video up today or upload it tomorrow. So go vote. Go vote. Okay. Yeah, it was a show about student government elections. The AV guys were in my Spanish class, and while we were talking one day, they told me their next show was about elections. I said the whole concept of student government was a sham and a farce and a popularity beauty contest. All the candidates claimed to be committed to change, to making things better. But I suggested that the AV nerds do a hidden camera setup and asked the front runners why they were really running. So they did. When the non-hidden camera was running, the answers were textbook. Helping the school, getting involved, taking a stand, blah, blah, blah. When that camera was off and just the hidden one was rolling, that's when the real reasons came out. Motives as varied as the faculty sponsor is hot, to you get to skip class whenever you want. When the guys asked me on camera who I'd be voting for, I told the truth, which was that I didn't give a flying bleep. That's how it came out on air, at least, who the candidates were or what they stood for, and neither did anyone else in the school. I also suggested that, just for fun, everyone who was sick of the pretty people using school elections to perpetrate the social dominance of their tyrannical clique should make a point of voting for a person they'd never heard of. I wasn't really serious. I just thought I was being, funny. But I guess people have different definitions of funny. I hadn't counted on them using all of that footage of me condemning my fellow students as the basis for the entire segment. I was just a freshman, the girl with the bright pink hair, nobody to get excited about. That was the day Surrey Survey got the axe. It was also the day I made my second appearance on the cheerleaders' public enemy number one list. Because the front runner for student council VP was Pepper Laird, and she lost the election to the new kid nobody had ever heard of, Carter, Carter Bloom. Pepper may have been knocked off her throne, but Carter's popularity soared. Soon, he was the pack leader of the preps, the buttoned-up speech and debate-obsessed clones. Preps were like cheerleaders, only with less jumping. I had no idea how easy it would be to create a monster. In fact, I had created two monsters, Carter and myself. Suddenly, the freshman anonymity, okay. Suddenly, the freshman anonymity that had softened the public's image of me was blasted away, and once again, I was that girl. So, I started to walk toward the clinic. He came wandering after me. So, okay? He said at last. Clearly, you have no idea who I am. Clearly. He wanted me to ask. He was dying for me to ask. He held open the clinic door for me. The nurse was standing at the counter behind her desk, trying to fish the last cotton ball out of the jar. Be right there, she said without looking at us. Then she disappeared behind the curtain. I planted myself in one of those guest chairs, and Carter sat next to me. He leaned over and spoke in a confidential tone. Are you proficient in the Heimlich maneuver? Sorry. Something is my throat. Yeah. He leaned over and spoke in a confidential tone. Are you proficient in the Heimlich? Are you proficient in the Heimlich maneuver? It took me a second to realize he was reading from one of the posters on the opposite wall. No, I said. Sorry to say. I looked over at the next poster. I looked over at the next poster over. A cartoon about helping your young friends fend off depression. A little cartoon girl was looking at her friend and asking, How about you? Do you ever feel like hurting yourself? How about you? Do you ever feel like hurting yourself? He paused and let out a half laugh. Well, only on turkey tetrazine Hold on. Okay. He paused and let out a half laugh. Well, only on Turkey Tetrazini Day. I don't think they serve that here. Right, he said. Lucky me. He didn't say anything else. Neither did I. The nurse came bustling out. Carter, are you hurt? Yeah, she said. Uh, Carter, she said. Are you hurt? No, I'm just here to make sure Miss Warren gets the level of care she needs, he said. He was totally flirting with the nurse, and she was lapping it up. And I thought chivalry was dead, she replied. He stood. Maybe it is. I opened the door. Maybe it is. I opened a door into her head. Oh, well, I'm sure it was probably an accident, the nurse said absently, sitting down at her computer. What was the name? Warren, Carter said, looking right at me. Forget this. Not about to let him stand around and play hero. I went to the desk, moving closer to the nurse, so that Carter had to edge away. Alexis Warren. She asked a couple of questions, and I kept shifting so that eventually Carter was completely blocked from the desk. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him take the self-conscious step backward and felt a pang of guilt. I should get to class, Carter said. He patted a stack of papers on the desk and leaned down a tiny bit toward the nurse. I've done my civic duty. Civic duty? Was he just using me as a cog in the oppressive machinery of the white male hierarchy? A line on his college application? Part 3 of a Boy Scout badge? To think I almost felt sorry for him. All so he could enjoy the smug satisfaction of being a good citizen, get into a fancy university, become a lawyer, and help sleazy rich guys dump toxic waste wherever they felt like it. He looked at me. If there's anything I can... There's not, I said. The breezy look on his face faltered. Stop. My head was starting to throb, and my mood was souring by the moment. I can take care of myself. Everyone was quiet. The second hand on the old wall clock was the only sound. Just go to class, I said. You're the boss, he said, touching his finger to his forehead in a tiny salute. Then he disappeared. And that is the end of chapter 4. Yeah, I think I'm going to read chapter 5. How long is chapter 6? Oh, it's another fairly longish one. So yeah, I'll just read chapter 5. Alright, chapter 5. On my way home from school, I heard a car horn and looked around for the honker. Excuse me. Yeah, on my walk home from school, I heard a car horn and looked around for the honker, even though not once in my entire high school career had someone honked for me. The responsible party was Carter Bloom, in all his J. Crew glory, driving a shiny green Prius. He pulled up next to me, and the passenger window rolled down with a happy honk. Can I give you a ride home? He asked. I leaned down to look at him across the car, but didn't answer. He shifted into park. Hi, he said. How's the school? I have a bump, I said, but I got some sweet aspirin out of the deal. Seems like they'd at least let you sleep through in class when you've been knocked in the head. He paused. By an evil young Republican. They like it when kids get minor head injuries. They think it builds character. He nodded. Glad to see I didn't knock any of the pink out of your hair. I reached up to brush a strand of hair off my forehead and winced when I touched the bump. Please let me drive you home, he said again. It's really the least I can do. You mean it's section 4 of your How to Be a Good Citizen handbook? He scrunched up his forehead. Don't worry, he said. You've completely fulfilled your civic duty. His eyes widened. No, that was a joke. You didn't think I really meant it, did you? I didn't answer. Trust me, he said, raising his eyebrows. There are a lot easier ways to serve my community than dealing with you. Young Republicans have weird senses of humor. Yeah, they do. They do. As a personal favor, he said, please let me drive you home. All right then, fine. I sighed and opened the door. You're the boss. What if your friend sees you? He asked. Are you willing to deal with the consequences? Oh, please, I'm not afraid of the Doom Squad, I said. That's an excellent name for them, Carter said, smiling. Maybe we can arrange a rumble between the Young Republicans and the Doom Squad. He shifted into drive. So, where do you live? I pointed down the street. 3 houses down, the one with the yellow shutters. He laughed. I guess I have bad timing. Yeah, well, I said. You seem pretty determined. I hated to disappoint you. He pulled into my driveway and put the car in park again. Wow, he said, looking up at the house. Our house is pretty cool, I must admit it. It's the oldest house on the block, probably the oldest one in the town. It's big and ornate, with elaborate details everywhere. Not just shingles, but little scalloped pieces of wood. And not just columns holding up things, but arches connecting the columns. That kind of thing. The oak tree in the front yard adds to the effect. It's enormous and gnarled. It hangs over the house like a protective boyfriend. It's lush and vivid in the summer, tangled and bare in the winter, and in the fall it turns from green to red to yellow to brown so fast you hardly have time to notice. But right now it was 1/3 yellow, 1/3 brown, and 1/3 bare. My sister actually flipped out the day we moved in 8 years ago. She thought her parents had somehow bought the haunted house from Disneyland and transplanted it to Surrey. She spent the whole day screaming. Mom even thought there might be something in the air that was causing her physical pain. But no, as is always the case with Casey, it was pure mental. Trying to appease Casey's fear, my parents repainted the house's exterior with a sunny yellow and white color scheme, but it didn't really cut down on the overall spooky look. We get huge crowds at Halloween. Sadly for me, the coolness is diminished by the fact that my family lives here. Home sweet home, I said. It's where the heart is, Carter said, craning his neck to see out the top of the windshield. This is quite a house. I bent down to pick up my bag off the floor. Yes, it is. It's kind of a mess, he said. I dropped my bag and bumped the back of my head on the glove compartment. Excuse me? I mean, it's really a jumble of architectural techniques. He pointed to the bay window. That window was Gothic, and the shingle detailing is all Queen Anne, which kind of go together. But the columns on the front porch are neoclassical, which is just plain wrong. Silence. Really? I said coolly. Yeah, really, I said coolly. But to be honest, inside I was kind of lights and sirens. I narrowed my eyes and shot him a glare, just so he wouldn't suspect anything. Yeah, I mean, whoever built this house just kind of picked random elements from all of those styles. He squinted up at the top of the house. And don't get me started on the mansard roof. That's pure Second Empire. I stared at him. My mom's an architect, he said, shrugging. slumped back in my seat. I slumped back in my seat. I really, really, really hate to admit it, but I was sort of kind of yeah, but I was sort of kind of maybe the tiniest. Let me say that again because I really want to get this right. I want to emulate this girl so bad. Just fucking vibe with her. Yeah, I slumped back in my seat. I really, really, really hate to admit it, but I was sort of kind of maybe the tiniest bit intrigued. It wasn't often you met kids my age with an appreciation of architecture. I'm Carter Bloom, by the way, he said. Yeah, I know. Oh, he said in confused silence for a few seconds. Can I ask you a very serious question? I'd rather you didn't, I said. He stared straight into my eyes. If you were an animal, what animal would you be? Wait, what? Wait, what? It's a classic icebreaker. If I were an animal? He faked a sigh and checked an imaginary watch. Your inability to answer the question doesn't bode well for. I refuse to answer that, I said, on the grounds that it's probably the stupidest thing I've ever been asked. He stared at me, frowning. I hear your subconscious saying monkey. Right, I said. Monkey. It's because she's in a fear and she's calling out. Damn, he senses her persona already. Monkey! Yep, monkey. Yeah, Chandler loves monkeys and gorillas. That's the animal he would be. But yeah, gorilla. Yeah. He stared at me, frowning. I hear your subconscious saying monkey. Right, I said. Monkey. Are you mad at me for knocking you over with the door today? Yeah, I'm furious. Wait, no. Yeah, are you mad at me for knocking you over with the door today? Yeah, I'm furious, I said in a monotone, rolling my eyes. He faked a grimace. I need to be more careful. My turn, I said. Are you really a young Republican? Would that matter? I thought about it for a second. I don't know. Well, I'm not. I'm not in any political party. I speak for myself. Interesting answer. And suddenly the car felt like it was 100 degrees, and I would have liked maybe 3 more bucket seats between us. I have to go, I said. Thanks for the lift. Your shutters are goldenrod, not yellow, he replied. See you tomorrow? I doubt it, I said. but I could feel my lips betray me with a hint of a smile. I ducked my head and turned away. The front walk felt like marshmallows beneath my feet as I tried to get to the porch, knowing he was watching every subconscious step I took. When I reached the stoop, I turned back to look at him. His eyes took he took his eyes off the roof and looked at me. "It's a mess," he called, "but I kind of like it." Then he honked and waved and drove off. I walked through the front door feeling a little dizzy. I stopped in the foyer and looked around. Architectural jumble. Well, maybe he had a point. The entryway was even more ornate than outside of the house. The wide stairway spilling out only a few feet from the front door, the high ceiling with crisscrossing arches, the wood-paneled walls with intricately carved details, the cherubic, and wood-paneled walls with intricately carved details, like cherubic faces and squirrels and birds and sprays of flowers. It looked like a fairy tale had exploded all over the walls. Straight ahead was the hall that led back to the living room. To the right was the kitchen, and just past that, the dining room. To my left was a sitting room that nobody ever sat in. What did Carter know anyway? I went up the long staircase to the dark hall of bedrooms. Mine was the first one on the left. I went inside and flopped onto the bed, my eyes sweeping the plaster molding for signs of architectural failure. I had to stop thinking about Carter Bloom. But she can't because she likes him. Part of me wanted to develop the pictures from the previous night, but my eyelids started to feel like they were being pulled shut. I gave up and closed them, the delicious promise of a nap settling over me like a blanket. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when I heard my sister's voice. "Now, Arabella," she said, "don't be a pig. You have to share." A pause. "I know it fits you perfectly, but she's new and she doesn't have anything to wear. Think what she's been through. Don't you care about her feelings?" Another pause. I pressed my hands against my head. "But what if we have company again? Sar, I couldn't take it. I reached up and thumped on the wall with my fist. A minute later, there was a tiny tap, tap, tap on my door, and Casey popped her head into the room. "I didn't know you were home," she said. Her eyes were wide. I traced the outline of the bump on my forehead. "Why are you talking to your dolls, Casey?" "I'm not," she protested. "You know you're 13, right?" "That's not what I was doing." "It's just a little crazy, that's all." "I am not a crazy, Alexis. You're so rude." She slammed my door and stomped back to her room. I tried to go back to sleep, but I felt a little bad, so I got up and knocked on Casey's door. She opened it a crack. "I'm writing a story, and I was just working on the dialogue," she said, before I could apologize. She backed away from the door, and I followed her inside. It had been a while since I'd been in her room. She was too worried that I would break something. Even our mother isn't supposed to go in there, according to Casey. If I banned my parents from my bedroom, they'd assume I was operating an international drug cartel. But Casey's always been the well-behaved daughter, so she gets away with it. I stared at the dolls, which were lined up on the built-in shelves like a sinister chorus. There wasn't room for all of them. There were more in an old cabinet squeezed between the bed and the window. And half the closet was filled with them too. Casey had rag dolls, porcelain dolls, talking dolls, peeping dolls, baby dolls, dolls in elaborate costumes, and dolls stripped down to their pantaloons, like the poor new girl, whichever one she was. Some were so old and used that their soft, smooth cheeks had been worn into a shine. Some were brand new. Some were half bald. Some were pristine. But they were all creepy. It was the only quality they shared. I was dying to photograph some of them, but that was just unheard of. Impossible. Casey seemed to realize for the first time that I'd entered the forbidden zone. "Let's go talk somewhere else," she said, trying to sound chipper. "You're utterly transparent," I said. But I let her guide me out into the hallway and back to my room. We both flopped backward on my bed, and she grabbed my old blue teddy bear, Mr. Teeth, and started tossing him into the air. "How was school?" she said, in the tone of... "How was school?" she asked, in the tone of voice that means she wants something. "Fantastic," I answered. "How about you?" She hugged her bear tight to her chest. "Not so great." "No? What happened?" She shrugged and yawned. "Don't want to talk about it." "Okay. Let's see. A half-hour wine fest about the middle school cafeteria running out of puddings versus peace and quiet." I didn't press for details. "Hey, Lexi," she said, her voice small and hopeful. "Did you do an ancestor report in 8th grade?" "Don't remember." "Everyone does one." "Then yeah, I guess." "Do you still have it?" "I must," I said. "I'm a pack rat, like my mom. Thankfully, I'm also obsessively neat, like my dad. I even have file cabinets of my very own. Thanks, Santa. I wouldn't have thrown it away. Why do you ask?" "I have to do one," she said, "and it's hard." "When's it due?" "Tomorrow." "Casey," I said, sitting up. "You always do this. Every couple of months it seemed the whole household was thrown into chaos because of some academic crisis caused by Casey's work every couple of months it seemed the whole household was thrown into chaos because of some academic crises caused by Casey's poor planning." I thought she might cry. "I know, but I can't help it." "I know, but I can't help it." "That's a cop-out. You could, if you tried." She pulled Mr. Teeth tightly across her face. I know. "God, stop," I said, grabbing the bear away. This was the way most of her weird and moody spells started. She'd get all wound up about nothing. She closed her eyes and sighed. "You don't have to help me." "Seriously? Tomorrow?" She nodded. She looked completely miserable all of a sudden. Her face had gone all splotchy, and her blue eyes were bright, like she might start crying. "Casey's in 8th grade. That means she has less than a year to pull herself together, enough to survive being my sister at Surrey High. She's super smart, but it's the kind of smart that makes you think she's going to end up a mad scientist. She can read something in a book and remember exactly. She can't see scary movies because she'll remember all the scary parts perfectly and have nightmares for months. I'm smart too, but I'm more like take the toaster apart and put it back together, and lo and behold, it still works smart. I'll help you, I guess. Yeah, I'll help you, I guess, I said. You can't just not turn one in. She made a gurgly sighing noise. Oh, thank you. You should try and plan ahead next time. She sniffed. Who are you, Mom? I whomped her with Mr. Teeth. Is it in your files? She asked, popping off the bed. Can I look? I'll find it for you, I said. Later. Right now, I need a nap. Yay, yay, yay! Yay, yay, yay! She said, dancing out into the hallway. 1 second, the weight of the world. The next, lighter than air. Must be nice. A thought occurred to me. Hey, Case, come back. I called. I heard the stupidest thing today. She reappeared in the doorway, looking at me curiously. It's dumb, I said. It's silly. It's just something Pepper Laird said. Her eyes were still wide, but a deep crease spread across her forehead. When Mimi broke her arm, that was an accident, right? Casey was quiet for a moment. I swallowed hard. I mean, Pepper's totally stupid. I just thought I'd ask. They're both stupid, Casey said. Stupid Pepper and stupid Mimi. Right, I said. So you aren't friends with Mimi anymore? Casey scooped Mr. Teeth off the bed and threw him at the headboard. Mimi Laird is a fathead liar. She has no idea what she's talking about. She's just clumsy. She's a liar. A clumsy liar. Calm down, Case, I said. Forget it. I believe you. I hate Mimi, and I hate her stupid sister, Casey said, running out and slamming the door. The whole house shook. I guess that could have gone better. I settled back onto my pillow and let my eyes close, lulled by the sound of the blinds rattling in the wind. I dreamed I was standing... Yeah. 100% possessed. Yeah. This is where it starts. Yeah, but I dreamed I was standing on an island in a swamp full of alligators. I could see their backs floating in the water like logs. And then I saw Casey swing toward me, blissfully unaware of the predators that... I'll break her legs 1,000 before... Damn. It was actually her arm that she broke, but yeah, she could break her leg too if she wanted to. She can touch my toes again. Yeah. But yeah, I dreamed I was standing on an island in a swamp full of alligators. I could see their backs floating in the water like logs. And then I saw Casey swing toward me, blissfully unaware of the predators that surrounded her. So I pulled out a rifle and shot at any alligator that got close to her. Then Casey was with me on the island, braiding my hair and singing me Christmas carols. And a battered doll in a ripped petticoat came out of the water and walked over to us. But Casey couldn't see her. And the doll pointed at Casey and looked at me and said, "Your sister is crazy." And that is the end of that chapter. Oh yeah, it's happening now. Shit is gonna go down. Nice. Okay, well, that was a good session to read. Thank you so much, my followers. I will see you in the next in the next video. Bye-bye.